when you have race, especially in America, like that adds to the nuance. And so I didn't like the fact that the other parents were so critical of some of their approach because they're not understanding like the racial issues that Black and other people of color face, and to be completely insensitive to how they're raising their kids because they have to factor in this part was just infuriating to me. Like the one Black guy, like the one parent, he kept crying because he's like, you all don't understand. Like, I have to have these conversations with my 5 and 6-year-old, because they're going to be out in this world. I have to, explain the things that are happening in the world and in the news. And they're like, oh, well, why don't you just let your kids be kids? And it's just like,
because they don't get that opportunity.
I don't have that opportunity to do that. Welcome to
We Grwn? ?
I'm Jess.
I'm Moyo.
And I'm Shaun.
And first things first, what had you feeling grown?
So, I have kids, as we all have heard multiple times, and I constantly am trying to explain things to them and have like these teaching parenting moments. And recently, my daughter started singing Can't Nobody Tell Me Nothing, but she sings it as peanut butter tell me nothing. And so I have been correcting her for I don't even know how long at this point. And so I'm like, okay, teaching moment. Let me break this down to her. Like, it's can't nobody tell me nothing. And so I say, peanut butter can't talk. So what is peanut butter going to tell you? And the child says, nothing. Like, exactly. She's like, what are you confused about? And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, go ahead and sing. Yeah, I was like, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. I understand the logic, and now you can sing the song however you want to sing the song. Like, I get it. But yeah, there's moments like that, and there's also moments where it just feels like, why am I arguing with a 3-year-old? Am I not an adult? But I really will have full arguments with these kids, including my son. He is not exempt because he'd be quick to be like, no. Okay, relax yourself, and yes, you will do whatever I told you to do. But yeah, they are interesting.
He at that age, no age.
He's like, now that I can voice my opinion, it's going to be the opposite of what I really want, just to be contrary.
So, make sure you know.
Yeah, yeah. They're sweet though. They're so smart, and it's like sometimes you have to really think. Like when you're arguing with a kid, you're like, at some point you're like, I get your thought process. It might not be right, but I understand. Like,
but it's a
it
thought
makes
process.
sense. Yeah.
That is very interesting.
Like you're calculating something in your mind and it makes sense to you. And you may not be able to fully explain it, but like there's something going on in your brain that's making you feel like this is this right. And this. Yeah.
I wonder if kids hear. I mean, I assume they hear different. Like hearing gets better as you age. I mean, because she's hearing peanut butter tell me nothing.
I don't know if it's a hearing thing. I think it's just a.
What can I connect it to? Like, what do I know?
I don't think she's ever heard somebody say "can't nobody." Like to her, that might not make sense. Yeah. So she's like, it can't be that. Because I think there's songs where she'll sing the song from beginning to end, and I'm like, why do you know all the words to this? So it's not. I don't think it's a hearing thing. I think it's just a
what she knows. Yeah, like, and it's just
nobody has said this yet.
This word works.
Yeah, like the Applebee's song that she used to sing all the time. I'm like, why do you know the words to this? And that song has a lot of words she should not know. And I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. Applebee's on a date night.
Yeah. And I don't know what they be saying, but she be saying words.
She be saying their words. So yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a podcast, it's a video, and more.
Okay.
Well, I guess that kind of leads into this week's topic. So in the book, Marriage Be Hard, as you guys know, we're doing this whole guided book discussion. So we're not reviewing the book. We're just using it to help us facilitate these conversations. So this episode is on Parenting Be Hard. And honestly, when I read this chapter, I was like, this has nothing to do with how I thought this chapter was going to go. Yeah. So the way that the book went, they really kind of talked about sex and like how
Yeah.
to talk to your children about sex
Mhm.
and how to make that a conversation, like an everyday, make it like everyday conversation where it's
Yeah.
not awkward, it's not
Yeah.
weird. You can just have that conversation. And we talked about that already, I
Yeah.
feel like, in
Yeah.
a few different episodes.
Mhm.
So I was talking to one of my coworkers, shout out to you, and she was telling me about the Parent Test, which is just a TV show on Hulu,
Mhm.
or whatever it's on. But it's a TV show, and they take different parenting styles, and they're trying to see what the best parenting style of America is. So the parenting styles are child-led, and I guess I probably should explain them as I go. Child led, so it's kind of, and most of them are like what they sound like. Child led, the child is really making most of the decisions, so they kind of do what the child wants to do and don't really tell them no too often, but they still kind of like guide them and lead them. It's kind of like a mentoring relationship in my eyes, and these are just my opinions
That's a good
on
association.
these
Yeah.
things. Traditional, so I think that was more like just how,
Cultural.
yeah, cultural things. So they really had, I think they were like,
They were Jewish by culture.
Yeah.
Mhm.
so a lot of their parenting styles were based on, or parenting tips were based on like what they learned growing up, passing things down from parents and so on and so forth.
I don't know if that's
Um,
going to help a little better.
yes,
Look
it
at you with the
does.
resources.
Yes.
Yes. Come on,
I
links.
tried to
Come on, links.
set it up.
So this one says, it also says the parents are in charge, the kids are expected to obey. The next one is intensive. Here, parents expect their children to make good grades and excel in sports and activities. So this one is really, they are, encouraging. I guess I don't know if I would even say it was encouraging. It was like
It was
you're gonna
very
be,
intense.
It
Like
was
yeah,
just like the
intense.
word says, like they were kind of forceful a little bit.
yeah,
Like
like
they don't accept failure or quitting.
yes, you're
That's
gonna
really
get good grades.
Yeah.
that was the major key, was failure was not an option.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
you must excel, you must achieve at all costs,
Yeah.
and including you having fun. Like,
Yeah.
yes.
Let me go back up.
There's disciplined, which is, they describe it as, this approach is structured with an emphasis on consequences for bad behavior. And I feel like when I watched it, I didn't really see too much discipline, but you could see how the
she had the
child had
fear of God.
already
Yeah. Yeah.
was already disciplined.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the things that the child did were already like,
She
yeah, I know better.
understood. Yeah, she understood
Yeah.
that if I step out of line, I'm gonna get put back real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you
and
could
it wasn't a fear either. It was just
No.
like, I know what my boundaries are, and I'm not gonna test the boundaries because
Yes.
I know what it is.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it was done in a respectful way.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think, I mean, when you watch it, and like I'll try to not do spoilers, but like as you watch it, I think the personalities, it's hard to differentiate personalities from the parenting style, so that
Mhm.
kind of, can influence how we think about how they were doing parenting.
Mhm.
But you could definitely tell that it was a disciplined parenting style.
Mhm.
The next one is natural. The natural approach sees families enjoying a more relaxed lifestyle, mostly outdoors. I don't know, it's kind of like they lived on a farm. They allowed their children to progress at their own pace,
Yeah.
which sounds similar to the child led, but they still had structure.
Yeah.
It
There
was
was
just,
still
And
some
they were,
boundaries.
and they were the authority. They were the
yes,
authority. They were more authoritative than child led. Whereas you ask the child, and the child gives you an answer, and you're like, okay, well, we'll move off of that answer, kind of thing.
yeah. I think they're with the natural, like the child might be outside like on a log, and then they might just allow them to fall and then
Mhm.
see kind of like, oh no, you scraped your knee.
Mhm.
But so it was just interesting, that one was to me. A new age, that is the yes day parents who placed the fun above all else. New age to me was kind of the parenting style. They took basically all the other parenting styles and
Mhm.
made like a
That
new
one.
one. So
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say like they're more like the millennial kind of parents in
Yeah.
my
It
eyes.
was a good mix.
Yeah. So you saw discipline, but you saw them being fun and friendly to the children. They wanted them to achieve, but they also wanted them to be sensitive and know their emotions. So,
Yeah.
uh,
And I think they
mhm.
were still very loose in their parenting styles, but their kids understood, hey, when it's time to get serious, I need you to get serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they
And
whipped into shape
yeah,
real quick.
and they had clear boundaries. Like if the mom was like, hey, I need my time, I need you to back up, like the kids were like, okay, I mean, she need her time.
Right.
Yeah.
So I like that about, I think, even just going tangent a little bit, that's probably the style I most identify with, just
Yeah.
because it's a little bit of everything. Like people may feel like, oh, why aren't you beating your kids, or why aren't you yelling at them this way? But I don't need to do that. Like there's pieces that I'll take from each thing. And at the end of the day, do my kids listen? Do they respect people? Are they kind?
Right.
Are they like those are they were more so focused on the core values
Yeah.
than like trying to force your kid to do things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that you could see them incorporating other styles into it. I mean, it
Yep.
was kind of like there's a time and place for
Yeah.
each thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was pretty cool,
Mhm.
a cool style to implement. The next one is routine. So an approach like this is more traditional and adheres to a strict structure to help kids feel safe and know what to expect. You know, they wake up at this time, they have to be out at school at this time. We do homework, then there's this and this. So it's very structured
Mhm.
Yeah.
approach. The high achievement is kind of what it sounds like. So it was similar to the intensive approach, but it really like pushed them to achieve greatness or achieve something, period.
Mhm.
Um,
I think it also the high achievement one took an approach where it was a little more mentoring versus
mhm.
like I'm going to teach you and then that's that. Like you have to listen to me, you have to obey. It was more so okay, like not only are you going to achieve, but I'm going to walk with you along on this path. I'm going to mentor you and make sure that you reach the achievement versus just like I'm teaching you, you better learn it, you better know it, and let's keep going to
Mhm.
the next thing.
And I think a big thing for that was pushing them out of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the one son definitely was like, no. And then,
Mhm.
like, the dad is like, you're going to do this and you're going to be great at it.
Yeah.
So, helicopter. So, these parents value supervision over independence for their children. They were very much so, you know, if the child is going to dance class, they're going to be at dance class. Um, if they have some kind of school activity, they're going to be there. So they don't really, the freedom is varied in their family dynamic. Free range, consider this approach the opposite of the helicopter parenting style, where the kids are allowed to explore and self supervise.
Mhm.
It sounds like they could just do whatever they want to do, which
Yeah.
is kind of what they did.
Yeah.
Strict, they followed rules. That one I kind of had like, I was like, what was the difference in strict and discipline?
Strict
Um,
was based in religion, and so because it was based in like more of a religious aspect, there was just like there's certain rules that you cannot break, and then there are consequences. Whereas disciplined is more so like a relationship with that child, and that's how
mm,
you kind of build on that plan. Versus strict is like these are the set of rules.
Yeah, strict was more do as I say,
Yeah,
whereas
yeah.
disciplined is this is why you should do what I'm
yeah.
telling
There
you
was
to
a lot
do.
more
Yeah.
explanation.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think that was one where I kind of fell into like the personalities and then the family, what the family wanted versus like the parenting style, because I was
Yeah.
like, I feel like you're doing the same thing that this family is doing. So what is the difference
Yeah.
That's fair.
here? Um, that was a challenge. Well, and then the last one is negotiation. So the parents and kids are equal. They discuss feelings and needs. So it's kind of like, okay, there's this or this. Like, which one do you want? Um, I don't think it actually played out that way.
It did not at all.
Well, I think
To
so.
me.
The way they kind of were doing it
Trump was
is
bribing.
Literally bribing
was-
and distraction.
okay. I can see that, but I think they were saying negotiate. They weren't really negotiating with the child. They were giving the child options, but they were like making it seem like you know you want this one, right?
Well,
Like,
but
it was guided options,
they were-
basically.
some of them were like, "Oh, if you do this, like you can get ice cream. We'll give you ice cream." And I was just like, "Is that a negotiation, or
I
are you
mean,
just bribing?"
I don't know, because I feel like this is kind of the same. I don't know, because I'm thinking about it like in a as an adult. How do I negotiate with people?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, I will give you this if you give me this. Like, that's negotiation.
Yeah, yeah,
It mean you can call it bribing, like depending on the setting, it could be bribing. But
yeah,
the kid also had the option to be like, nah, I'm good.
yeah. And we saw that.
Yeah.
We saw that a lot. So, those were the different types of parenting styles. So the show just goes into, they have different challenges that each child, I mean, sometimes it was families, groups of children, that they would have to accomplish. And then they would like vote to see which parenting style they did not like, and the ones that they liked the most. And then it would like get eliminated until there was like the final three. And then
Yeah.
they picked from there which family was, or which parenting style was the best in America. So it was very interesting to watch and see the different parenting styles. So before we get into what, well, you already said your parenting style, and before we get into like we discuss how we think we might parent, I'm curious to know what parenting style you grew up with from your
Gotcha.
parents.
I can go. I found it interesting watching this show and seeing how those parents were raised, or how they recall being raised, and how that influenced how they parent. So
Very
that
true.
was so interesting to kind of see like things that triggered them by other parenting styles um kind of come up, and them saying like this was the motivation why we did this parenting style versus that parenting style, or this is the reason I decided to change my life in this kind of way. Because when we first started watching, I was like, oh my goodness, like I get why this person is triggered by this, or I understand like why this is happening, or why they would choose this parenting style. um so in my childhood, I would say, oh, also a critique of the show from like an empirical standpoint, like a scientific like experiment standpoint, this was not realistic. Like
I agree.
it's very hard to do like a fair experiment when you have kids of all different ages, people of all different backgrounds, and then you're telling them they have to adhere specifically to the boundaries of a specific like parenting style, where I think most people are kind of more of a new age where it's like a mix. They're just mix is going to be a little different,
Yeah.
like I just felt like that was kind of weird about the show. Like it was like forcing like, okay, well, this is our parenting style. This is the only parenting style that we adhere to, and these are the results. But I'm like, but also kids are different, and also families are different, and there are different things at play. But I will like that's just my primary critique of the show.
I completely agree, because I mean, we talked about this before, where I was like, I feel like it was challenging to put a 13-year-old in this situation, and then like us looking at it going to a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, and they were like, for the most part, they had like the 13-year-olds doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But then like when I'm looking at the 5-year-olds, I'm like, but I feel like the approach is just different
It's gonna have
for
to
a
be.
5-year-old,
Yeah.
and then their
You have
approach
to
is different
accommodate.
for the 13-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, because at least we're seeing how they interact with the 5-year-old, and for the like 13-year-old, we're seeing if they know what to do.
Yeah.
Like if they were already taught this.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say, when I was doing the research, there's only, I think they said, 4 actual parenting styles that then have a range. So this is the reason we see a lot of mixes, is because these are like
facets of a different
of a larger
that makes sense.
Little subcategories.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I think for me growing up, I had a mix where my parents parented me differently a little bit. So I would say they both were helicopter for sure. And my mom was a mix of high achievement and intensive, and my dad was definitely more natural.
I can see that.
Yeah. Like so many times, like my dad would just, if he had to cut the grass or we had stuff to do outside, like I was left to my own devices. I climbed trees, I ate grass, I helped around the yard, like I just explored. He let me explore, and like he took that approach anytime we would go somewhere outside. Like it was more so a teaching moment, or like, okay, you lead and just take whatever you want to do, and then I'll explain or I'll coach you along the way. But he was still ultimately the authoritative figure. So like when my mom would have to work weekends, we would go to like natural parks, we would go to museums, and he would sometimes pick the museum or sometimes ask me if I had enough experience with them. And, on occasion, he'd be like, oh, don't do this or don't do that. There was one time we went fishing and I was like walking to, I think, pick something up. And he was like, stop right there. And I'm like, stop. And I'm like, why am I stopping? And he's like, you see that over there? And it was like, it was a snake, cottonmouth. And so the cottonmouth was like sitting right under the water with his mouth open. So it's just like an opportunity to learn, oh, this is what a cottonmouth looked like. This is their natural habitat. Like it was very natural in that perspective. And my mom, on the other hand, my mom has always been very much into get your education, be as smart as you can be, learn as much as you can learn. A lot of my gifts from my mother were educational. She did, as I got older, she did branch more into like fun stuff. But even some of the stuff that the lady from the intensive family was saying, like, there's reasons why, there's so many studies on sugar and how sugar is not good for kids. Like literally the only time I got sugary cereals was if my dad went to the grocery store and I like asked him like, can we please get it? Please.
You got
please.
you got the little tiny box.
Yes. Yes. Growing up, I had the little sample boxes. That was like
not trial.
Like no large size box. The only time I would see large size boxes would be if I went to visit like a cousin or a family member. And y'all talked about me in college because I loved Kix. Kix was the compromise cereal. That's why I love Kix, because it's super sweet to me because I didn't have sugary cereals.
Kix, we put sugar in Kix.
Yeah. I was like, you add sugar to Kix.
You definitely add sugar to Kix.
It was like, that wasn't it.
Yeah, but my mom was very much like, like certain things we don't eat. We're going to make sure that you have a nutritious diet. Like I grew up in a rural area, so of course that's kind of why natural fit us.
Yeah.
So we grew corn before. That was my job. I grew corn. We grew strawberries. We grew like tomatoes, all kinds of vegetables and stuff. So I was so used to always being around that. And so that would make sense that before we eat whatever we're going to eat, we have a salad or we have these vegetables. So I always grew up with like a vegetable first kind of idea, or fruit is a treat, because it's so sweet. So yeah, even I think to this day, that's probably why I still don't feel like I like candy like that. But she also was high achievement in that, she put me in activities. At one point, I was in piano and dance and in a dance like competitive team. And because it was so much for her to like do the commute and everything, and I was so tired that I wouldn't want to practice piano, she's like, you have to decide which one you want to do. So of course I committed to dance. But it was just, if you're going to be a part of something, you're going to do it full out. You're going to do it to your best of your ability. Like you can't just not do anything. Like idleness is the devil's workshop was like her favorite thing to say, because every summer I was either in a summer camp or an enrichment camp. And if we were traveling, I had a puzzle book or a math book to be working on. So yeah, high achievement / intensive. And they both were helicopters because I was the only child. So yeah, they were always around. But I didn't mind it. I don't think as much now as an adult.
I think my mom was traditional. Like you just knew that she was in charge and everybody else just followed suit. Because I was thinking maybe discipline, but I don't know that she was necessarily like a disciplined parent or strict or anything. Like we had rules, but it was more, when I tell you to do something, you do it. You also have your free time. You also like, there was just, we just all kind of knew what we were supposed to do. And if you didn't do it, you got in trouble. But it wasn't as strict as I think people probably imagine my parents would be. And then my dad, I don't know what that man was. Maybe free range. He didn't parent us. And I don't know if he watches this, but I don't think he parented us. He was always traveling, and so when he came around in those early days, like, he was just the fun parent, the parent that'd be like, leave them alone, they're just kids, let them be. Like, that'll be the time where we could just be crazy and don't get in trouble. Well, we still get in trouble once he leave, but while he's sitting in this room, we would just be like, let's take full advantage and do all the fun things. And I think there was a point where he tried to be the disciplinarian, and we just looked at him like,
too late now.
It's way too late. Like, my brothers will listen to me over him any day. And I feel like even to this day, they're going to take me as more of a parent figure than him, just because he wasn't that type of parent. He was a do what you want to do. If you go and complain to him about something, he'll tell you to be like, he'll just be like, quit. Like, it's okay. Life will move on.
Like, we talked about that in a previous episode too, how that played out.
He is not a, like, he's a very stress-free, as much as you, like, just live this life. Life is short. Do what you want to do. Like, don't let stuff stress you out. And I definitely took that from him, where I'm like, ain't nobody about to stress me out. Not me. Right. I don't go back and live with my daddy for all this. Like, so I'm always like, well, my daddy said I don't need a stress. And that's how I live I've lived like that forever, and I feel like I will continue that. And even with my kids, I'll be like, don't let nobody out here in these streets stress you. You can always come back here. Like, if you really get that down, like, I'm here for you. Like, don't have people out here stressing you out.
I'm just picturing Joyous like, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, yes, I think I think out of these, he has to be free range, just because they're the most, like,
hands off.
Yeah, do whatever you want. I'm here if you need me, but because there are times where we would go to him for things, but it was more like, I want to know something, because he knew a lot of random things, and he liked to talk, so we would go listen to him tell stories. Or he'll be like the parent who's just randomly dancing, like, put on music and just start dancing. So that's who he was. Like, he was just a fun parent.
Yeah.
So yeah, free range, I think.
I don't know. What?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I forgot about strict. Yeah, I would say strict was also a part of mine too, because they were Christian, so we had the rules, and they were, of course, authoritarian. Sorry.
No, you're good. That's really hard. It's hard to think about, like, how was your parenting style, or your, how were you parented?
Yeah.
Yes. I would say my dad is probably more natural and maybe new age ish. Like, my dad was also very, my dad's from the South too, and that might just be a Southern thing, but he was very much like, we gonna be outside. So I remember plenty of nights, we're just outside looking at the stars, and he's telling me about stars, astronomy, and I'm like, cool. I'm like, well, that didn't translate to college because that did not go well. But so we would always be outside. It's like, oh, let's go chop some wood, and it's like, okay, like, that sounds fun. Or like exploring different parts of the neighborhood. Like holiday stuff, we would go do, like, oh, let's go get a Christmas tree, but let's go chop it down. I'm pretty sure we definitely did not go to, like, oh, this is a Christmas tree farm. This was just like a straight up
in the middle of the woods.
Yes.
Ain't nobody going, I pay for it when the trees are free.
I'm definitely sure there were times where we were, like, doing stuff we weren't supposed to. I remember him throwing me over a gate, and then him climbing over the gate so we could go get this tree. It was with one of our neighbors, and then we chopped down the tree, and then we had to, like, get the tree back over the gate too. Yeah, so now that I think about that, it probably was not, or maybe it was a farm. You never know.
And just stole it.
Yes. So yeah, my dad.
Off hours tree stealing. If it was gated, it probably was not just the
you
woods.
Probably weren't supposed to be getting over the fence to get the tree, but
it was a fun adventure though. So.
Free trees are not gated.
You're right. They're definitely not. And then I got a little baby tree for me. So that's okay. Yeah. So it definitely was not a.
It definitely wasn't the forest if they had baby trees.
No, I don't think that tree was ready. I think I just went and got that
Y'all
tree.
went to a tree farm. somebody who does this for a living, and y'all was like, you know what? You can come up off one of them at least.
The whole life flash before
Right.
your
I'm
eyes.
like, oh, well.
I'm a criminal.
Right, like, I done stole a Christmas tree.
I think
Several.
you've reached the statute of limitations on those. So.
Yes. I mean, we do fake trees now, so.
Same. We always do
Um,
fake trees.
But that's kind of how he was. I mean, I played sports and all, and I never felt from either of my parents like I needed to play sports. I was always busy, kind of like you were. So I was always in after school programs. But I also had a lot of energy. So it was like, yo, you're gonna burn this joint. So I was always in clubs in the summertime, so on and so forth. So, and I think so. My mom, she might have been more, maybe. I don't know. I have no clue.
New age?
I feel like my dad would have been more new age than my mom. Like, I feel like my dad was more like, yes, feel these emotions. Like, you can cry. And I don't think my mom was necessarily like, yes, you can cry. But then if I did cry, it wasn't like, don't cry. You're a boy. It wasn't like that whatsoever. It was like, oh, you're crying. That's fine. So maybe it was new age, but new age.
Just a different range. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like all of these are going to be some kind of range.
90s
too.
new age. I mean, because, I was like, it was like, all right, go outside, come back before it's dark.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how things were. Yeah, that's something I would need to think further about.
You asked the question.
I did. Yeah. And then as y'all were talking, I was like, okay, so it's not this one. It's not this one. Could be this one. Not this
free
one.
range? She wouldn't be free range?
I don't think so.
She seems very hands-on.
Yeah. I mean, because my mom went to, like, and that wasn't helicoptery. Like, my mom was at all of my soccer games, like my track meets and stuff, but it was more supportive. It wasn't
then
like,
I would say new age.
yeah, maybe it was.
I think
just
it's
combining a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
Because I definitely, like, I got to help cook. I got to do this. I got to.
Yeah. I like that.
Go ahead. So question for Jess. So we heard about your parenting style. Curious to what you think your parenting style will be and why.
I do not have kids as of now, as of yet.
I know how you are with Titan though.
Titan then I treat my baby like you treat Titan.
Titan is a different story. This man is opinionated and sassy, but we're working on it.
What you think a child is gonna do?
I know, but
I not met Joyous.
And this is why I'm working on it now with Titan.
Oh, okay.
This is why I'm working on it now with my dog, because I would say I am more with him, more like strict and or disciplined, because it can't really relate high achievement or intensive, like
jump over this.
yeah, like I like, he's very smart for a dog. Like, he knows certain things, certain instructions, he knows like what to do, but it's not that I'm like encourage him. Like, one of the things I wanted to teach him was how to close a door, because this man sure knows how to open a door, but he won't close them. He loves busting in a room, and I'm like, bro, can you close the door back since you busted up in here? But I was like, that takes a lot of effort, so don't even worry about it. But I think what we would like is to be more of a hybrid, for sure disciplined. And I say disciplined because I like the idea of explaining the why behind rules and what's going on. I think that carries more weight than just because I said so or because the Bible says so. Like, I think there needs to be like a purpose and a mission behind, how you're parenting your child, what you want for them. But again, this is all speculation. Things could change, once you have a kid.
Right.
And I also feel like, your parenting styles probably should change according to how your kids are. Like, you can't really try to control their personality or who they are, because that's just not kind or nice. So, yeah, I think this could change, but the way I foresee it right now is more so probably disciplined and new age. I I think one of the things that was like a big deal on the show was like, how many people spank their kids? Well, they say hit, but and discipline was included in the numbers that like raised their hands. So I do think that I won't say that I'm going to hit my kids, but I do think that the consequences to actions should correspond to the transgression. So I don't think hitting necessarily should be the answer to or the immediate solution for hitting. I mean, for discipline, but I do think that we would work on like solutions to have something that corresponds to what you did wrong. So, like, if you took something that you weren't supposed to take, like what typically happens, you either get fined or you go to jail. So either you're going to be in timeout or something is going to be taken away because you took something, like stuff like that. So it just requires more thought. And I will also add that Melissa and Kevin have talked about this before on our podcast where they were saying like they don't blame their parents for resorting to physical hitting because a lot of the times, especially for latchkey kids, they didn't have time to like explain. They didn't have time to come up with unique ways to discipline. So what's the easiest and first thing to do? Spank a kid. So you don't necessarily think, or they're more forgiving of their parents because they realize that they did the best with what they had and the resources they had, and they were short on time and short on, I don't have this time to like go into all of this discussion about it because I got to get to my next job, or I got to do this, I got to do that. So I think if we have the opportunity to have kids, that we would want to take that approach of like explaining things and then making sure that they understand that every action has a reaction and a consequence, and sometimes good consequences, sometimes bad.
Yeah. I literally just wrote that down. I was putting what's the difference in consequence versus punishment. So like punishment as in more probably shame based versus consequence that is more learning based. So like there are consequences where you did this, therefore this is a response to this. You stole this, therefore you
work to pay it back.
Yeah.
Versus like punishment, you stole this and I spank you or something like that. So
yeah, I think about that. Like when my kids spill things, I don't yell at them because I'm like, I spill things. Don't nobody yell at me, and I wish they would yell at me.
Yeah.
So what I've done recently is like, okay, you go get the thing and you clean it up. And they'll be like, okay. And they're just like, they aren't stressed. They don't get stressed when they spill something. Like when I was little, I'd be so stressed when I would knock something over or break something, and now I'm trying to hide it, or I'm trying to like, and then somebody's asking, who broke this? Everybody, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was. We just lying now. Like it's so hard to just. It's hard to, because you know the consequences. You've already been through that, so you're like, how do I get out of this? Instead of how can I fix it, or what can I just go to my parents and say, hey, I did this. How can I just get a consequence versus a punishment? Like that wasn't a thing back then. Everything was punish.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, you didn't really learn, like you just learned how to either lie and still get in trouble, or lie and maybe get away with it.
Yeah.
And then I guess probably consequences you often know beforehand. Like things, this could happen.
And that comes from that discussion too. Like having that discussion of like, this is why we don't do this, or this is why you shouldn't do that. And sometimes there's similar to the law where you may not even know that this is wrong until you like, whoop, I'm in the consequences now. So yeah, it's definitely it's a process. And like I said, I think our parents didn't always have the bandwidth, capacity, or time to like explain.
It takes a lot of time to explain things
and
to
a
kids.
lot of repetition.
Yeah, too much, honestly. Like sometimes it's like, I already said this, and sometimes I will have times where my kids run up to me and they're like, sorry mommy. I'm like, I know they done did something. So they're like apologizing in advance, and I'm like, okay, tell me what you did. But I'm sorry. I don't. What are you sorry about? Can you just tell me what you did? And that takes like, because in their head it's like, I'm gonna get in trouble, or I did this, but I don't want to say it because I don't know what's going to happen. And not that I've done anything to them, but they might have seen someone else do something
reaction.
similar and got in trouble. Or like sometimes they'll come, well, Joyous will come and be like, so-and-so did this, so they had to go to timeout. It's like, okay, do you ever mind your business?
She be knowing it all the
She
tea.
do know everybody's business.
Tea time, mommy.
But those type of things is like, okay, now if she does it, she's going to feel like, I need to be real alert about it. Yeah, so it's difficult to have to repeat yourself so much, and I get why parents just were like, if I spank you, you're not gonna forget.
Yeah.
Because I ain't never forget. I'd be like, oh no, I won't do that because
Right.
I already have it in my mind that I will get spanked and I don't want to get spanked.
Yeah.
But now it's like you tell them something. Okay, they did it again. You tell them again. They do it again, and it's like, how many times do I have to tell you? Don't let me tell you again. And then I'm a threatening parent. Like, I don't ever do anything, but I'm gonna threaten you. I'm gonna threaten you as much as I can. I'm like, do it again and see what happens. Nothing's gonna happen. They know this, but they will still straighten up just out of the fear of, let me put a little extra bass in my voice so that you feel me here.
Like, oh, mommy, don't talk to me like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I can definitely see you and Ronald doing a very good job at doing the explaining beforehand and the consequences. Like, this is why we do certain things and why we don't do things. So I can definitely see you doing new age and disciplined well.
Thank you.
Until that sleepless night come, and then we'll see what happens. But
By the time but I think by the time you're getting to where you're implementing your parenting, you hopefully wouldn't be having sleepless nights.
Probably
True.
not, but I
Because
feel
you
like
can't do anything with a newborn. Them newborns don't listen to nobody.
Newborns be like, so
Why
I heard
you
what you
crying?
thought you was gonna do. Absolutely not.
They don't understand what you're saying. They
You
looking at
on
you
my
like, what are you
side.
talking about?
Babies be hazing you, man.
But you're gonna change his diaper though. Right.
Yeah, I'm fine. But you still gonna hear this.
I ain't want nothing. For me, I think that our parenting style, we talk about this a lot. John is a very strong believer in routine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's necessarily how, like, the full parenting style that he'll have, but he is a very strong believer in routine. And both of us are very routined people. Like, I go out of routine a lot, but I still do, like, typically have some kind of routine. But for both of us, I think we'll end up being new age, but we will still follow like a routine just to make sure that things are, like, this is how
Just some
things,
structure.
Yeah.
Which will probably help me a lot too, because
It's not all that helpful.
no,
Well, because I am routine and my kids are on a schedule, but when we have to go out of that routine, it becomes like
difficult.
They don't
It's
be
so
sleeping over here.
they don't sleep anywhere but their bed with the white noise on. And now they done added the humidifier, so it's a whole thing. Like, they be like, can you do this? Okay, can you cover me? Oh, but you didn't hug. Like, all the things that we did in a certain order has to be done in that order because that's all they know. So they be like, I need to hug daddy. I need to kiss daddy. I need to do this. And then I need covers and turn my light off and turn this on. And I'm just like, why did I start this?
Hop on your left foot. Don't forget it.
Like, but I like it when we're at home. It's great. But whenever we have to go somewhere, we do not sleep.
That is definitely something to consider.
Yeah. Definitely figure out how you can
accommodate.
Go.
Somebody else take you.
Let somebody take them every once in a while just so they can get used to it. Because even going to like my dad's house, my dad be like, don't bring your kids back over here till they know how to sleep by themselves. Because him and Charmaine will have to sleep in different rooms. You take one, I take one. That's the only way they're gonna sleep. And I was like, well, I'm sorry. Like, they only sleep. Sorry. They only sleep in their bed.
Yeah.
Well, yes, that is definitely something that we will. We got to figure that out. But I do think we'll be more new age. There was one part of the negotiation that I want to implement, but not implement the way that they did. So I love the idea of, so John is very much like, no, like we should make decisions. So we've talked about this, and then I was like, I think kids can make decisions, it's just at a certain level, and you also might have to give it a decision, but a closed-ended decision, like not open-ended. So like, do you want to wear this jacket or do you want to wear this sweatshirt? Either way, you're gonna wear one of these, but you can pick which one of these you're
Is
gonna
that
wear.
negotiation though?
I don't know. That's why I said like I don't want to do it the way that was on the
Yeah,
show.
it probably need to add another one that's called decision making or something, like kind of like a child led but with boundaries.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would say it was more so child. I still I'm sorry, these people did a horrible job at
It was
representing
something.
negotiation. Like they
I
were
agree.
begging this child and or bribing this child. Like there was not negotiation anywhere in there.
But I think in their mind, and to me too, I think they did a good job at it, and it showed you that it doesn't make any sense if you're always having to negotiate every single thing and you never make a decision. The child really never makes a decision either. You're just like, the child is like, I want apples. Are you sure you want apples? Do you want apples or oranges? I said I want apples. Like the man said he want apples.
Right. Yeah.
I don't understand why you asking him questions.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, it was like that was the distraction part. Like, oh, we're not going to do that, or actually that's not an option. Then don't ask them.
Yeah,
like give them the option.
They should have been. What I feel like they should have done is been like a decision-based parenting style or options or something like that. But they wanted to say negotiation because really they are just convincing their child to do the things they want him to do. And that's why they're calling it negotiation. Oh, he gets to make a choice that we've done planted in his brain and told him he wanted to. Yes. So hard. He's not making decisions. So I think that's why they're calling it negotiation.
Yeah.
Because we are negotiating what we want for our child.
Decision making definitely sounds more appropriate.
Yeah.
I mean, because there are times, you want your child to be able to make decisions as they get older, but then you also don't want them to not ever be able to make a decision in the household. So like we were talking, because it's like, okay, so how do you do that for food? And it's like, well, I don't want my child being like, this is what we're having for dinner. And I was like, okay, well, what if it was like, we're making rice and beans for dinner, and then it's like, do you want red beans or pink beans? It's like, oh, like you're contributing, you're making decisions, and just a thought. I don't know how any of this is going to go.
Option of a side, or like when we do taco days, we'll say, do you want a quesadilla instead? Because one likes quesadillas and one doesn't, but it's easy for me to do that because all the stuff is the same. Or like if you're doing spaghetti, do you want meatballs or not? Like there's already maybe ground beef in the sauce, and then I might do meatballs anyway. Like some things you can without making an inconvenience for yourself.
Because we talked about that too, about like it being convenient, because I forgot who it was. Somebody was like, they went to these like 5 places to get their children dinner that day, and then John was like, absolutely not. And I was like, maybe if you're driving down Route 40 and it's like, all right,
if it's on the way, maybe
you can either get this Taco Bell or this McDonald's, because this is on this side. Like we ain't going to Chick-fil-A over there because that's something different. But it's just interesting hearing like, oh, how should we approach that? And how will we approach that? Because all this stuff could go right out the window.
That's what I said. I was like, do not hold me to this. If my future child watches this and all of a sudden I didn't parent him this way, I ain't promised. I just said this might be.
Yes. The goal for me is new age. I liked the discipline. So ideally it would be that. But I know how, man, it's going to be such a challenge. Because I know how I am. Like I'm definitely the fun one. So it's like, fun, but now I gotta be a parent. So
but I don't know, you can be a parent and still be fun. Okay,
They're
maybe I was gonna say like my dad, but he wasn't really
when you were saying that, I was like, okay, so
that kind of sounds like, I feel like you might be like him, but you will be more present in the everyday where you're like taking them to things and doing things. My dad didn't do that. We only saw him really at home, and then once he like stayed here permanently, it was more he led certain things. So if we were doing Bible study, he would be like, okay, we're all doing Bible study. But if it was an activity, he didn't really want to do that stuff. And I think you would do it. You'd be like, I want to do activities with you, or what can we sign up for? And you would go and be supportive and be like there.
Yeah.
So I think in that aspect, you would parent more.
Yeah.
And still be the fun one and still be the goofy one, or have the, take them out.
You lean towards your strengths, because that's kind of how my parents were. Like, my dad was very outdoorsy and like hands-on with stuff, and then my mom was more of like, she likes the arts. So, with me dancing, and then at a point I was acting as well, like she was very supportive of that, taking me to like, shows and productions. And then, like I said, my dad taking me to museums and parks. So I think you kind of just go with your natural bent, and just also see how the child is interested. Because I think that was the other part of it. It was like,
that's true.
They both were fun, but in their own way. But they also still like checked in, like, oh, do you like this? Oh, do you like that? And then kind of made adjustments according to like my feedback.
Yeah. I think everybody will be fine.
Yeah.
In the world that we're in now, there are so many resources, and like everybody's putting their life kind of out there, so you can see examples and I like when this person did this. Let me try that. So it's unlimited resources to figure out for every situation, what approach should I try? What approach should I take? You can go and see what people's difficulties are, like potty training. I went and I was like, oh, these people having issues. Let me be grateful. Like I have read so many posts about my child won't poop. And I'm like, what? Your child won't poop? And that same post, every other day, somebody else is like, help, please, my child won't poop. And I'm like, wow, people are dealing with a lot. So when you actually go and you find the resource, and I went on that because I was trying to figure out how to potty train, because I was like, I don't know, go to the bathroom.
Cousin that was like that. I mean, grown now, but he was like that. He would not poop.
That's a thing. It's like
it really is a
common thing. Like, kids can be completely potty trained, but they only poop in a diaper.
Yeah, they used to like give him
laxatives.
To try to help him go, because he would not poop. The kid would not poop.
That's a thing. I didn't have that issue, but
I don't think I had.
And that's how I got introduced to that book. Everybody poops.
Not the way this tummy go.
Oh, you
gonna go. You gonna go now.
Yeah, them kids will just hold it, I guess, because they don't want to use the toilet, or they're scared of the toilet.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a big toilet. Can be. I mean,
they can use a small
toilets,
one. Yeah, but I don't know. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. But the things you can find on the internet these days that can help, like even with the whole gentle parenting movement, there are definitely good points in the way that people are trying to raise their kids in that movement. But then you also have like the gentle parent adjacent accounts where it's like, I'm a gentle parent sometimes, but sometimes y'all can get these hands.
Exactly.
So what would gentle parenting fall under for these?
Child-led.
I don't know. Child-led. What is child-led again?
Or would it be new age?
I feel like it might be more new age, because it says child-led is the opposite of traditional.
I don't like that they have these are the yes day parents.
What? Oh, okay.
Because they had to say yes to everything, but everybody, it was more than one group.
That's why I was like, that's a weird.
I don't think they could. I don't think it's a good description of it, because they're a mix of everything. And I don't remember if they like not beat. What's the word? Spank their kids or not? Like when they asked. No, the new age.
Yes, I think they did.
I don't remember.
Wait. I think they did.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I know their kids were really
gentle
funny,
parenting,
though.
I think, can be.
Their kids were really funny.
Gentle parenting. I don't know. I think it could fit under. I don't know if it would be child-led, though, because gentle parents don't really let their kids do anything. They just respond in a more like calm way when your child does things wrong, or at least the ones I watched.
Child-led negotiation, like
that might be new age.
Negotiation, or you're saying gentle is new age?
Yeah, I mean, it might be a subcategory of new age.
New age, yeah, I think so.
I could see that.
I mean, New Age sounds so broad.
That's
It's
the
just
thing.
like,
Like New Age is literally like we're a hybrid of more than one of these styles. That's
yeah.
literally
Yeah.
what New Age is. Yeah.
It might just be its own category if they do another season.
Gentle.
Oh, that
Yeah.
would be
Gentle.
Especially
that would
because
be
it's on the
cool.
rise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be a good one to throw in there. But
I can already say I'm not gonna be a gentle parent.
I wonder how it would go because I feel like gentle parenting is relatively new.
New Age was the one where the mom was like, I need a break from y'all.
Yeah, she was the one
Mm-hmm.
where she was like, yes, y'all can play with my wigs, but if y'all mess them up, you won't be playing with my wigs
Yeah,
ever again.
that's a gentle parenting style. Like telling your kids this is what it's gonna be. So think about your future when you're doing things. That's something I think they talk
Mm.
about. Or the way you
So then that's
discipline your
disciplined.
kids.
Because you're explaining it. I think that's where I'm struggling because I
Mm.
know of some gentle parents and they don't necessarily have consequences always to misbehavior or bad behavior or negative behavior. Like it's just I'm as long as I'm not hitting my kids, that's all that matters kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay,
And
then it's probably just its own range then.
yeah, so that's why I'm like gentle parenting could be a mix of child-led negotiation, well, maybe not free range. Maybe free range.
Maybe.
But natural. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily new age because I think new age still has more of a authoritative approach still.
When it was needed?
Yes, for sure when it was needed. For sure when it was needed. Like the kids understood that their parents are the authority. Like
Yeah,
even with
yeah,
one
they
of the
definitely did.
challenges, like they succeeded at the challenge because they understood that their parents were the authority. Like it wasn't even that the parents had to be in the room. They're just like, oh, we can't do this because they're not
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it just depends on the type of gentle parenting. Because
Yeah.
I've always, every time I hear it, people are like, people think that this is what gentle parenting is, just letting my kids run free. But that's not what it is. They still have structure.
That's
I
why I
just
say, yeah.
don't discipline them the same way, or I don't react to them.
Then that's disciplined.
Or is it free
According to
range?
this.
It could be anything.
It really could. Yeah.
Well,
But
because remember the free range one, was it? Oh, maybe the free range one, like they were like, you sound helicopter-y.
yeah, because they were former
Yeah.
helicopter parents, so they decided to do the complete opposite of helicopter and go free range.
Yeah, but
Hmm.
they were helicoptery because they had their kids pretty much 24/7 still.
And that too, yeah.
Because they
I mean,
just
well,
travel.
They were
like,
they were
lived in an
mobile.
RV,
Yeah.
so
I think that was another critique I had of the show was the fact that like these parents don't. So the parents on the show, there was 2 black parents and then one, well, I guess she was kind of mixed. So she was Latina and black as well. So you have them as the minority, as the black minorities, and
there
you
was a
had
mixed one.
Asian parents. Oh yeah, and then there were other parents that was a mixed couple. And then you had the also the Asian parents as well. And so when you have race, especially in America, like that
Yeah.
adds to the nuance. And so I didn't like the fact that the other parents were so critical of some of their approach because they're not understanding like the racial
Yeah.
issues that black and other people of color face.
Mhm.
And to be completely insensitive to how they're raising their kids because they have to factor in this part was just infuriating to me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the one black guy, like the one parent, he kept crying because he's like, you all don't understand. Like, I have to have these conversations with my 5 and 6-year-old, because they're going to be out in this world. I have to, explain the things that are happening in the world and in the news. And they're like, oh, well, why don't you just let your kids be kids? And it's just like,
Because they don't
I
get that
can't.
opportunity.
I don't have that
Yeah.
opportunity to do that. And then there was one in particular that really made me upset was like, I always have this issue of like, let kids be kids, especially black children. And so for one of the challenges, they had them to do something. And so they've always critiqued this, one parent about, oh, you need to let your child be a child. And so in the challenge, the child failed because he's very young. So his dad was helping him. And so they're like, oh, well, we really expected him to do this. I'm like, so you're putting those expectations that he should know more and do more, because typically people expect Black children to behave older than they actually are, because that's how people are socialized. Like, it's still a part of that dehumanization of Black people that still persists from slavery. So to put an expectation on a child to know how to do a very adult thing, like make a meal, is unrealistic, So I didn't like the fact that they were in one sentence telling him, you need to let him be a child, and then in another sentence, like, oh, well, he should know how to do that. Like, well, which is it? So that was also one thing that was kind of upsetting about the show, was like people not really grasping or clicking or taking the opportunity to listen. Like, it's one thing that, as a X, Y, and Z, I'm never going to know what it's like to be a Black person. That's fine. But are you actually listening and taking in, like, what this person is saying? And, like, again, we as Black people letting our children out into the world, and people of color letting our children out into the world, there's just extra risks and just fears and things that we have to prepare them for, not because we want to, but because we're forced to, because that's the society that we're in. We want better, but we also want to make sure our children are prepared.
Yep.
No, I agree. I do wonder what the footage looks like overall that they got, because I do feel like sometimes the clips that they would use of the families of color, like I was like, dang, is that how it really went down? Like, because it seems like they might have portrayed them in a certain light, or maybe it was just like we're trying to really emphasize this is what parenting style they are. Because some of it I was like, oh, this is intense. I mean, it wasn't necessarily an intense one, but I'm like, okay, like I might have done it differently, but then you see how the child is, and I'm like, okay, well, the child doesn't
seems happy.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I feel like we're missing
They're playing a narrative, playing up a narrative, so that it's production. I would say it's definitely production.
Because like the one the one with the pool where it was like, you're gonna get in the pool my way, and I was like, I was like, well, shoot, I don't know what I would have did, because I don't know if I would have just hopped in like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. Like, just seeing, and then again, seeing other parents triggered by how parents were treating their kids, like, this is my parents did to me, and that's why.
And it was like on multiple occasions. And
I
thought it was really interesting that it was like the men that would be
the men were
triggered.
hella triggered. There was like one woman that was triggered every so often, but the men were just like, ugh. And I'm sorry, I am very pro, like, let's explore feelings, let's talk about things, but I am not a sensitivity police person. Like, I will not be like, oh, you can't say that, you can't do this, you can't do this, for like even small things. Like, there was one couple that was really upset about the abduction.
Oh yeah.
The attempted abduction episode, to the point that they were like, we're not showing it. I don't even know why this is a challenge. And it's like, we need to talk about this because abduction happened. Abductions are happening. Like, you not wanting to talk about this and not wanting to show this when you signed up to be on a show is unfair and unrealistic, because again, this is something that's happening in America that's seriously a problem. And one, parents don't know how to talk about it. Parents don't know how to start the conversations. So, and one of the, groups said it, like, we're the sacrificial lambs for America right now, just to show them, like, this is a serious issue. We need to start talking to our kids about how to deal with strangers, how not to answer the door, how to deal with people who come up to you that you don't know, or even people that you do know. How do you handle that situation? And so them being upset about it, I'm like, not wanting to talk about it doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, no, I get that. One thing I wish that how I would change the show by, instead of us eliminating them right away, because I wanted to see how the kids
more
responded to the other things. Like, I would have rather had them do a ranking system every time, and then from there we
Tally
see
it
like
up.
who ranked this. Because the one family, I was like, yeah, and then like one incident happened, I was like, oh no, and then I was like, oh, okay, they're eliminated, but I'm like, but I wanted to see how they would have done in this situation. So
I think that was the one thing I also would have liked to see. Like, I would have loved to see how different parenting styles and children would have behaved in certain situations, because I don't think all of them were age appropriate sometimes, especially with the parents and the families that they put together. So yeah, I think that would have been a better idea of like do them all and then rank, and then the final tally up is the winner.
Yeah. Yeah, because some of them I was definitely like, the one family had so many children, and then they like, the way they like divided and conquered for some of their like activities,
it was not
I was like,
fair.
dang. And then this one got one, and he didn't do. He was like, oh well,
Yeah,
I'm out.
yeah.
So
Think people
just
have 50 million
interesting.
kids.
But yeah, that was
The parent test.
the parent test and marriage be hard parenting chapter.
Yes.
So remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. And
rewatch some old videos if you're just getting here, and welcome if you just got here. I know we welcomed you in the beginning,
but welcome again.
Welcome again.
Welcome and goodbye. Bye.
Bye.
See y'all. Love y'all.